Ooh, ladies, gentlemen, gamers, and fellow anime enjoyers, the time has come for another review. So, I have finally watched Frieren. I don't really know the full translation because I believe the Japanese name is like Soso no Frieren or some bullshit like that, which I believe it means Journey's End. And that pretty much very well encapsulates, but not really, the story of Frieren. So, Frieren is a very, very popular anime right now. I believe it hit, I don't know if it's currently the number one, but it hit number one in my anime list. And I'm actually going to do some investigative work right now to see if it's still up there. I should have done this beforehand, but I don't care. It is. It actually is. It is number one still as of recording this on May 23rd. Number one on my anime list. It is rated very, very highly. So it's the talk of the town, it's the buzz of the world, it's very popular. Now, I'm here to talk about it. And there's a little bit of difficulty I have to say about this, and partly is because Frieren is at the number one spot. And obviously, this is going to be very personal to me, and obviously, as with all my other reviews, we are not going to go into overt spoilers. Some light sprinkles here and there, for sure, but nothing crazy, nothing out of this world. So, anyway, what is the story of Frieren? To kind of start us off here. Frieren is about a story, and again, I'll mention some slight spoilers for episode one. Frieren is a story about the titular character, you might have guessed it, Frieren, an elf girl who basically went through her journey with her friends and is trying to figure out things. That's, I guess, the best way to summarize it. She's really trying to figure out things. Elves in this anime live for a very long time, and this is your mystical world. It's not an isekai, thank God we have enough of those. It's a mystical world, kind of RPG esque, but not really. Very not game like at all, but obviously it has magic elements and stuff. And in this world, elves live for a very, very long time. There's other races too. There's demons, there's dwarves, there's humans, and there's a little nuance with each of them that I really like. But we'll get into that when we start talking about the world building. But regardless, this is where Frieren lives for a very long time because she's an elf. And you basically get to see what that really means in the context of this world. So, first of all, what kind of anime is Frieren? It's, I don't want to say a slice of life because it does have action. Not much action, though. It is definitely not an action anime. It's kind of a mix between a slice of life, I want to say thriller because thriller reminds me of horror, but Frieren is very difficult to kind of pin down for my eyes. And that's because it does a lot of different things and it does them very well. However, it's definitely more catered towards a chill type anime. It's very relaxed, very chill. Most of the time, you're going to watch it and you're going to feel good. Now, I can't really talk too much about more of the story for lack of spoilers here, but I will say basically, Frieren, you get to see two of her journeys. You get to see the journey she went on with the group of heroes, Himmel, Eisen, and Heider, and then you get to see the current day where she's going on a new journey essentially related to the old journey, kind of, with a new group of people that waxes and wanes in terms of how many people are actually there. But the main characters of this show, the two groups, and Frieren's in both of them. Frieren's kind of like the connecting piece here. It's, like I said, the group of heroes, Heider, Himmel, Eisen, and then the new group, Stark and Fern. And obviously, Frieren's in both of them, like I said. So basically, it's about just seeing what Frieren is going through and seeing her evolve. And throughout the story, throughout the 28 episode anime, which, my God, I didn't think it would be 20 episodes, and that's a big positive. You get to see a lot of different things occur. And there is some things that I do have gripes with this anime. I'm kind of scared. And this kind of brings us back to the whole issue I had, where Frieren, and I'm kind of scared to say this because I know how anime watchers can get. Frieren, to me, is a very interesting anime. It's very unique, but because it's number one, I feel like it's being blown really, really hard. I feel like it's being stroked by people. And not to say it's not good, and I'll just pull the cat right out of the bag here. I really enjoyed Frieren. I thought Frieren was a very nice anime. However, I don't think, and I don't fully understand why it's number one, especially considering what people are into and what I'm into as well. People like action, people like adventure, and there is stuff in here. But again, it's not an action anime. There's pieces of action. There's definitely high tension moments. But as far as I could tell, there's like two. There's like two, maybe three if we're pushing it, high tension moments in this entire anime. But essentially, the anime is really fucking good otherwise. So, what are some good things about Frieren? Well, number one, the length. Like I said before, it's 28 episodes long. I love longer animes. I hate when animes are short, especially when they're good. When they're good and they're only 12 episodes, I'm like, God damn it, I want more. And then we're going to have to wait God knows how long for season two, where they might split it up and give us the first half, then the second half later on. We're living in dark times. But Frieren is a hefty 28 episodes, and that's really fucking good. Another thing that's great, almost every character in this show is really fucking cool and is really, I don't want to say fleshed out, but they're given their time. There's a lot of side characters that come and go, and it's not perfect. No anime is perfect, and I don't want it to seem like I'm putting Frieren at number one, because I'm definitely not, and that might upset some people. But Frieren, aside from one or two characters, which I think are either static or don't get too much time to really shine, takes every single character and kisses them on the mouth. Honestly, straight up. Every character, even from the party of heroes, even from the new cast, because there's a lot of characters that come in. And you would think they would do the Naruto where they just mention them, they do one thing, then they're over. But no. And there is some side characters where they're just kind of there, they're not doing anything. But for the most part, most characters in this show get their time in the limelight, they get their time to shine, and they're good, well written characters. I don't think there was ever a point in the story where I thought, why am I seeing this person? They're boring, I don't like them. Every single person, while not overly complex, some of them are, some of them aren't, but that's part of the charm. I think the story and the characters are just very, very well written. And this is where the story has a lot of flashbacks, right? Because not only are you dealing with the party of heroes, which is kind of in the before times, you're dealing with the current party, you're also seeing things from Frieren's way past. Like, we're talking like 1,000 years ago past. And it's pretty cool to see the difference and to see things change over time. The story feels alive. You get to see changes. Now, this is where, and this is kind of the going into the negative part. I'll try and save it for the negative section, but things don't really make sense timeline wise to me with how they're setting up the story. But either way, the action scenes, again, I only said there's like maybe three, but one thing the show does very well, even though it's not an action show, is the action scenes. This show mainly deals with two things: warriors and mages. As far as I could tell, there's not really anything else. There's no thieves, there's no like tanks or anything. The warriors pretty much encompass all of the physical side, and everything else magical is the mages, aside from one extra thing, which is the priests, which they cover kind of healing stuff. They do have some, I guess, offensive stuff as well, but it's pretty much mages and warriors, at least for season one. Priests are kind of sprinkled in as a secondary to mages in terms of magic, but you have beating and then you have casting. And the main thing I like is the way they show the action in the show. You would think casting and mages and using spells is boring, but they make it really, really interesting. There's a lot of different magics in the show. The way the fights are really fucking good. And I was honestly shocked for a show that is as good as it is with characters, the character development, the character interaction, the dialogue. I was like, okay, maybe it'll falter for the action. But no. There's times where when I see some of these spells on screen, I'm astounded. They hype things up very well. And everyone who watches my reviews knows I love strong characters. I love when things are hyped up to be extremely strong. And that is very, very apparent in Frieren. And it's so sad because they tease us with one of them. There's like a very, very strong character we meet in the anime, stronger than almost anything else, and they just don't show anything of them, and I'm so hungry for it. And that's the main thing I want to get along with Frieren, is that it's a very good anime when you know I want more. However, there's going to be more about that in the negative section. But regardless, the action scenes are great. The fighting is very well done. Like, it's not just like brain dead fighting unless you're dealing with warriors, and even then, there's not much. Like, on the warrior side, it is kind of just like unga bunga, I'm gonna hit you like a caveman. But for the mages, you actually have to think, and there's actually thought behind what they're doing, and there's some strategy, and it's really cool. Each mage has their own specific spells. Their spells do specific things. Some of them are ass, some of them are good. And one of the main things, and this is kind of a positive and a negative here, is that in the world of Magecraft, in this show, they have their own rules. And that rule is basically imagination. If you can imagine it, you could win or you could lose or you could do anything based on imagination. Now, it's not as bad as Baki. Baki takes it to a whole new level, and I'm not going to go into that. You can fucking imagine eating food and somehow you'll get full. But in Frieren, they really push this idea of like your imagination really is the limit, and things start to, in my opinion, not make sense after a certain point. Now, it makes sense to an extent, right? Obviously, magic has to do with a lot of formulating, a lot of thinking, and there's no clear power structure, and there doesn't really need to be for how magic works. There's not like a mana reserve system. There's not like a mana limit. There's kind of loose things they say like, oh, you're running out of mana, or oh, it costs a lot of mana. But it's not like Dragon Ball where they put on the scouter and they quantify this is his mana level. They don't really do that. And I think it's fine that it doesn't need to, because again, this isn't an action anime. But one of the things that really got me with like some of the action and how it works is they really blow imagination, not as bad as Baki, but there's some things that I was like, okay, they're really, really heavily leaning on the fact that imagination is working here. And I'm like, okay, it's not crazy. I really don't want to, I didn't even want to put it in the negative section. It's just like a thing. And I was like, oh, they're kind of relying on this. It's not too bad, but it's also not too great either. It's unique, it's cool, but it kind of gets pushed a little bit extra. IMO. But either way, to kind of end off on the good here, I think Frieren was an amazing show. It has great animation, surprisingly enough, great fights, even though it's not a fighting anime, great story, and you get to see the characters change over time. Although, again, that's going to be part of the negative section here, but overall, without spoiling much of what the story is, it is pretty much a feel good story. And the visuals, too, I'm telling you, the visuals are really, really good, and I'm surprised by them. They're not anything groundbreaking and amazing. It's not like Mappa level animation or anything for like the fights, but it's really good. The color palette's good, everything's good, and I absolutely adore the characters. I swear to God, that's probably the number one thing of this entire anime. The characters are just drop dead amazing. The main cast is just so lovable, and you just really like them, and they're very unique too. And I'll kind of describe them here. You have Frieren, which changes throughout the story. All of them kind of change throughout the story, except maybe Stark. You could say Stark kind of doesn't, but aside from that, I really like the characters. And another thing I have to say on the visuals, not in terms of how good it looks, but the general theme of the show. Like I said, this is a very chill show. It's a very chill themed show. There's a lot of times when the characters, both from the main squad right now and even the hero squad way back when, are just silly and they're stupid, and the animation really shows you it too. They put like cute little faces, especially for Frieren. When Frieren's doing something mischievous or she's kind of like caught with her pants down, it's very funny to see her facial expressions. They put cute little like faces, and I really, really do like that. As much as I like my strong, overpowered characters, I like my cute little faces as well. And they have a lot of that. The anime is silly at times, and it's funny, and it's great. It's a wide encompassing anime in terms of the range of emotions it covers, and it's really good in that sense. So now let's go over some of the negatives. So, like I said, there are a lot of characters in this show, and one of them being Stark, one of the main ones, as much as the other characters they get fleshed out and stuff, and everyone does get their time. It's not like Stark doesn't. But some characters similar to Stark are kind of there, and they either don't change or they just don't have much going on. Now again, this isn't a major complaint. It's just something that I kind of wish they focused more heavily on. Stark, when he first got introduced, got a lot of time. After that, and especially near the end, Stark kind of fell through the cracks, and he's just kind of there in the background, kind of doing nothing. He doesn't really change in terms of growing into anything new. He doesn't really go through any development. Maybe that's for the future, sure. But I'm just looking at it from a season one perspective here, and it's not necessarily, again, a big bad thing. I just kind of noticed it like, wow, everyone else is kind of going through stuff, but Stark is just plain old Stark. And that's, again, not necessarily a bad thing. It's just something I noticed. However, moving on to the elf girl, the titular Frieren. This is something where I kind of question it. So, like I said, Frieren lives a very long time. We see a lot of Frieren, especially her in her past, and especially her in her way, way past. And there's a certain point where, after a certain point, she kind of starts trying to change how she is. She's very cold, she's very reserved, she's very unknowing. And after a certain point, she opens up a lot more to things. And you have to understand how it is in the time span of things. We are seeing Frieren's life over like probably 1,000 years. And only in the past like 2 to 3, maybe to 6 current years is when most of the change occurs, and it just doesn't make sense to me. When she was with the Party of Heroes, a lot of things occurred that are very similar to what she's going through with the main party right now with Fern and Stark. But it doesn't seem like a lot of change occurred, where it's like it just seems like it doesn't make sense to me. Like there's some change, and obviously there's a big catalyst that happens, and if you watch the show you'll know what I mean, especially in the earlier episodes. There's a big catalyst that happens that kind of forces some change in Frieren, but I just don't understand how things weren't even like pushed beforehand, especially when it seemed like they kind of were. It just seemed like it wasn't working, and I just don't understand why. Again, this could be for the big catalyst, but it is what it is. But here's the biggest complaint I have about Frieren, right? As good as Frieren is, and this might be me just going against the counterculture, I don't know. I don't understand fully why it's the number one show. Again, I like action, right? I think a lot of people like action with the number one shows on my anime list. Now, this isn't, the end all be all, but it's something where I'm a little confused by it. Frieren isn't perfect. It's great. It's really good. But by the end of Frieren, I'm going to describe how I felt. I felt sort of satisfied. If I had to rewatch other shows, I would rewatch them, but that's personally because I like action shows. If I had to rewatch Frieren, I honestly think I wouldn't be too much into it because there's a lot of just chill, relax like time where you're just like it's a feels good show. And I'm like, why am I gonna sit here again and watch this? It's great. I probably would do it eventually. But with other shows, I can see more of a reason why I would want watch them again. But for Frieren, I don't really understand it. And by the end, throughout most of the anime, I was feeling hungry. I was like, okay, what's gonna happen next? What's going on? This, and that. Season one ends in a very good spot, and it kind of just left me satisfied. Where now, like, I'm not. I am looking forward to the future of Frieren, but I'm not hungry for it. I'm kind of just full from what it gave me. And that's kind of a good thing, but it's also kind of a bad thing because with other shows, I really want them to come out quick. I want to know what happens next right now. And again, most of that is for action shows. But for Frieren, I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm relaxed, I'm chilling, they're at a good spot. I don't really mind. And it's a very weird feeling I had with Frieren. It's like, I know the show's good. Would I want to rewatch it? Maybe one day, but like, I don't want to say it's boring either, because it's definitely not a boring show in the slightest. But it just kind of confuses me because I don't think it's anything crazy. Like, it's good, it's an overall very good show. But going into the future, I don't know why this show would be remembered other than like it's an all around great show. And it kind of feels like I'm shitting on it now, and I don't want it to seem that way. But I just think there's some dissonance between how people view the show and how highly they blow it and suck it versus my experience with it. So I'm a little confused by it. But overall, there's not many negatives I have to say. The characters are great, the fighting is great. Aside from some characters not really changing or having too much time, they all get a decent amount of time. Basically, there's not many negatives I could say for the show. The show is very good. It does deserve a high rating, I think, for its time. It's a nice little break from what we usually have with the JJKs and the AOTs and here and there, whatnot. It's very nice. It's a very nice show. I can't wait to see more, but I actually can wait to see more. So that's kind of where I'm at with Frieren. But overall, how would I sort of rate Frieren? I would say, honestly, and I know this might upset people, it was just an overall great show, but it doesn't play too much into my niches. It was just a nice watch. Now, that doesn't mean it's a bad show. And if you like this sort of chill stuff, it's a very, very good show. But for me, I think I would have liked a different genre because it's very just like they had their journey, and we don't see most of the journey. Oh, and this is another one of the negatives, actually. I almost forgot this one. This is a huge one. There's two negatives that's associated with this. And number one, how much they show the past and what they show. And I keep reiterating this show is not an action anime. I think I've made that obvious. There's things I want to see, especially with the Party of Heroes, because the Party of Heroes throughout this whole show gets jacked. They get blown. Like, they defeated the Demon King, they did their thing, they're like gonna be known for hundreds and hundreds of years to come, and we barely see them. Now, we do see them in, here and there, but we don't ever see them in their prime doing like actionable stuff. We see like moments and callbacks to it. We see like a still frame of them maybe getting run out by a dragon or something, but we don't see like the nitty gritty, the good. And again, it's because the show isn't an action anime, and it makes me upset. I want to see them like be legendary. I want to see them be well known, but unfortunately, we don't. And this is kind of the other thing. And this kind of goes into like, you know, who they show and for what. Himmel is basically the big character in the party of heroes in Frieren's old squad. They show, I think, more of everyone else but Himmel. They do show Himmel here and there, but they show him very quickly each time, and they kind of use him to like signify a lesson or signify like a big point. But the way they use him and the way they show him compared to the other characters is very different. They show a lot of the other characters in just more of a holistic way versus Himmel. They kind of just show you very quick glimpses. They are important, but they're very quick. And I feel like number one, we don't see them like fight, which is sad. I want to see them like at their prime again. But number two, Himmel has a big effect on the world. A lot of people know Himmel. Himmel affects a lot of things. And we do see kind of why. We kind of see how Himmel's character is, but I feel like they could have fleshed it out more, shown us a little bit more than the quick snippets that they did. And it was just like that's the one thing I really was wanting more of. It was more Himmel. And to be the most important character, one of the most important characters in the party of heroes and in the show for just his influence not only on the people but also on the world, I feel like they barely show him. And I was like, damn, I really want more Himmel. I not only want to see him fight, but I also want to see like more just to make sense of his character because they say his character is a certain way. He's a very nice guy and he does these certain things, but we barely see him do it. We see him doing it, but it's not enough for me. I always wanted more, and I feel like with Himmel, they kind of skimped out. Again, I don't know if that's because they're saving it, but if they're not saving it and showing us more at a later date, I kind of feel like they did not show enough Himmel to really justify like his effect on the world. You could kind of piece it together, but to really drive it home, I feel like they should have shown more. But either way, to kind of rate Frieren at the end of this long talk we just had, I would definitely rate it 8 out of 10 Grimoires, for sure. I don't think I want to rate it above that because it's just probably not my niche. Although I do like this type of show. I don't want to say I hate it, but it's not the apex of my eye. It's not the beholder of beauty to me. It's just a very nice show that I didn't mind watching. I really liked it, but it's just not my very specific niche, which is, and it has things of it. It's a great show. So actually, I think I would rate it maybe 8.5 out of 10, kind of begrudgingly. I really do want to emphasize it's a great show, just it's just not really what I wanted, but that's not to say I won't enjoy it. And I think everyone will enjoy the show. I think it's a very good show. It has a lot of themes that are really good. It makes you question stuff too. And it's definitely an emotional show. I definitely felt sad a lot of times in the show. I was like, wow. But by the end, I felt satisfied. Everything was good. And it's just pretty great. So I'd say 8.5 Grimoires out of 10, for sure. But either way, I hope everyone enjoyed, and I hope you watch me at Twitch TV/Tecnics channel.